Hi, everyone. Hey, welcome. Welcome to our weekly book study. And thank you for taking the time to be with us today. It's good to see everyone. We'll give everyone a chance to come in the room, get your favorite front row seat, and we'll get started. And we're joined together with a good friend of mine and Lisa's today, Rosalind Rourke. Hi, Rosalind.
Hi there. So
Good
good
to
to see
see
you.
you. So, just to give you all a little bit of a backstory with Rosalind, she's amazing. She's been part of what we do in different ways over the years. And Rosalind came on the Camino with us a few years ago, and this woman right here, she's a teenager. Just saying. Anyway, just want to welcome Rosalind to the book study. She has a real love for truth and the non-dual path, as well as the Course in Miracles, and just the wonderful teaching that we have available today is it's embodied in the way that she shows up. And I'm just grateful that you're part of our book study today. And welcome again. And Rosalind, this is a full chapter. We have 10 pages, but there's a lot of content in this. So let's go ahead and get started with it. And we'll go ahead and get started until about the halfway mark, and then we'll take a few questions. I have one that was emailed in, and you may have comments on the chat, so we'll include that. So
All right.
let's get started.
Well, I want to point out that the title is important, the memory of our eternity. He's not just teaching us a concept, oh, here's what eternity is. He's pointing out that we have a memory of it.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
And then that first sentence is super important to me because people don't come to any spiritual path, whether it's religious or non dual or Course in Miracles, for the concepts. They are coming for the experience. And he says, how might we turn the understanding of our ever present, unconditioned, and unlimited nature into our actual felt experience? That's it. That's why we're here. That's why we're all here, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And he poses it as a question, but he also follows it by, "Let's do this."
Okay. Yeah. And so now we have an experiment. And he says, and imagine a physical space of a room and add the quality of awareness to it. It is now an aware physical space, a knowing space. And now imagine that the aware physical space were to investigate its experience. If it's directed its attention to the objects of the room, it would always find them appearing and disappearing. So, like a pencil comes and goes, and so on. We come and go. Even the four walls, this sentence took me a second. Even the four walls, which seem to contain, it would appear and disappear in it. Wait. Even the four walls, which seem to contain it, would appear and disappear in its experience. So, in the aware presence, if I turn my head, it could be that that wall isn't there anymore because that's my experience. It could. However, the aware physical space would have no experience of its own appearance or disappearance. Like that's super important, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Super important. And this is important because a lot of people, when they first look at this idea, and there may be someone here that's still in this place, that's fine. We all start there. But like there's an idea that, yeah, I'm aware of this pen. Well, the person that's calling it by name is not the awareness that we're speaking of. and this is what the point is that Rupert makes in this experience and experiment.
So, in its own experience of itself, it would be ever present and unlimited. And these are super important words we'll see later. So, if we now remove the space like quality from this compound of space and awareness, all that remains is dimensionless awareness. That is ourself. I have to say that word dimensionless. I think for a long time when I was looking to have the personality and the body not be me, I was expecting, I think without realizing it, another dimension, not a dimensionless space. And that was real. I mean, if I had heard that, I probably wouldn't have heard it 10 years ago. I would have, I wouldn't have understood it. So, okay. We awareness, and we're reading more of this because we decided ahead of time that this was super important to stay with this experiment. So you have the experience. Yeah. We awareness have the experience of the appearance and disappearance of sensations and perceptions that constitute our knowledge of the body and world. But we never have the experience of the appearance or disappearance of ourself. So that's when you always use that Rupert expression, you know, are you the same as you were when you were 5 and 10 and now? What is it that's the same? It's this.
Yes. Yes. It's
All right.
this. So just, I just want to allow the space to experience what was just described. Because these book studies, they're fun, but they go deep with every pointing. They go deep with every sentence that's pointing to that experience. This is what I was saying to Rosalind before we went live. It's like you read a sentence and the idea that's being offered takes you to that place.
Yes. I could spend a year on this chapter. I know I could, and it would be rich. Yeah. We're not going to take any questions yet.
No,
So we'll just go
we're
on.
not going to take a year either.
No. We have no knowledge of comings into being with the appearance of the body or of ceasing to exist when the sensations and perceptions that constitute the experience of the body disappear. We cannot even say that we existed before the body or will continue after its death. I think we could skip some here.
Yeah.
We're not everlasting in time. We are ever present now. So important. Now. We are eternal now. Jesus indicated this when he said, before Abraham was, I am. And now he has us do something else. He wants us to return to our physical space and imagine it's taking 3 samples, one 500 years ago, another right now, and the third 500 years from now, after the building was demolished, has been demolished. Now, if the aware space were now to compare the 3 samples of itself, it would find them identical. Nothing that took place during the 1,000-year period of the experiment would have affected it in any way. It would not have aged, deteriorated, or become tarnished. It would always be in the same pristine condition. I'll take a breather there, but if that sentence is super important because he's going to bring it to us.
Yeah. Let's go on.
Now return to our experience of ourself If we were to sample our thoughts, feelings, sensations, and perceptions at various stages of our life, each would be different. But at various ages, we were to sample ourself, our naked being, before it is qualified by experience, we would find it always in the same pristine condition. Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll say our real self. He says our self with a capital S, never experiences any change in itself, divested of all the qualities it acquires from experience. It is simply present and aware, coloring itself in all forms of experience, but never being or becoming anything other than itself. I have to say, I years ago, I did not understand that expression, coloring. So, you put on a certain outfit, or you're in this role or that role, or now you're this, or this age, you're that. Those are all coloring. Bill might look different from me. He's a man, I'm a woman, all those differences, but we are one being. And the differences are the colorations that,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Yeah.
Nothing ever happens to ourselves. And now we're on page 54.
Yeah, and I like sitting with these ideas enough to acknowledge uh, the reality of the experience.
Yes, important.
Just because this is such a true statement, and it's speaking about what God is, and it's not this bodysuit. It's the essence of being, and there's nothing else, and yet there's everything else.
Yes. Yes. And even though it sounds like we're minimizing the colorization or the localization, Rupert is very, very big on teaching experience life. Experience it with all your feelings. Don't limit anything, even though it is a limitation. Do not limit it. That is not the point of it. The point is to be fully alive.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's move on to page 54.
All right. We're still in the experiment.
Yeah.
Imagine that the aware physical space were to look around itself at the objects in the room. Everything it saw would be limited. But if the aware space no longer gave its attention to the objects in the room and allowed its awareness to come back to itself, it would not find any limit there. It would find an edge to all the objects in the room, but none to itself. It would find itself open, empty, spacious.
Yeah, and that's a direct experience. What this made me think of was that metaphor, and I'm pretty sure Rupert used it a couple of chapters back, where he talks about the sun can never look back on itself. And this makes me think of, when you look at that idea as an image, you might see a ball, and the light that comes from the ball. I've heard many people say that we are the light of that source. And yet this sentence made me erase the ball, because there's only the source.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
There's only the space, and it can never look on itself.
And he brings it up again, the sun. He does it many places, but he does it on page 55. we'll get to that next in a little minute. But that's really good. Um, so, likewise, we find a limit in either time or space to everything that we know objectively, but we find no limit in ourself. This is big time stuff. It's big time stuff to open to. And I think it's really good to acknowledge if we don't get it, we don't get it, because that almost, in a way, is a portal. It almost opens the door to invitation to be shown, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So,
so, do you want to go to time and space?
yes.
In fact, time and space are never actually experienced. In the absence of thought, there's no experience of time. And in the absence of perception, there's no experience of space. Let's just take a second. Don't we have to think time? I mean, we speak of before and after, but in our experience, like now, there's only now.
Yeah. And I like how he drills it down to relate that time is only experienced as a thought.
Yeah.
It's only experienced as a thought. So, and thoughts are objects of experience. Therefore, they come and they go, but they're not essential to our self, to what is aware of that.
Mhm. Even in the presence of thought and perception, there's no actual experience of time and space. Time is deduced from thought and space from perception. Such big stuff. It's great stuff, isn't it? So exciting. So many opportunities to go deep, deep, deep. I think we could skip a few more where he repeats this.
Yeah. Let's go to the three dots on page 55.
Yes,
Starts with sometimes for you
yes.
all that are on Kindle.
Right. Sometimes it's said in the traditional literature that our self, the presence of awareness, transcends experience. And then he goes on to show us how that could be misleading because it makes it look mysterious and unknowable. And he says it's true that our self cannot know itself as an object of experience, but here's where he comes to the sun. At the same time, it never ceases to know itself, just as the sun never ceases to illuminate itself.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I love that picture, but all of a sudden, as I was getting ready for this time with all of you, I all of a sudden something erased the sun as a ball, and that's the essence of being that doesn't have a beginning and it doesn't have an edge or an end.
And you're also demonstrating for us, Bill, how we keep on learning, our understanding deepens. We don't stay static. We don't, that is the greatness of this process, that we continue, even if one says one's established or one is awakened, it's not a finality. It just keeps growing, which is the
Yes.
fun of it
Yeah. Thank you
and the
for that.
richness. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Saying that, I recently was watching a couple of of teachers that were I see their experience as awake experiences, but they're thinking that they're gonna move into another dimension and meet the have a full awakening
Mhm.
experience, and I don't think that happens. And you just described the same idea that it doesn't really. I mean, the glimpses are the same as the full experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
They just are more. They're more sustaining, and then the gradual experience goes deeper. And I don't think it has an. It can't have an end. It can't
And
have. You're not. You're never done.
No, because you're alive. That's the thing. But I also think your word sustaining is super important because it's nourishing and it feeds you. It's a very rich word, sustaining, because
Yes.
that makes us want to stay home. It makes us want to be established because it's so filling. It's so rewarding. Sustaining is a great word.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's
Let's
put
look
that.
on page 56 and we'll take questions in about 10 minutes.
Okay. Do you think we can skip John Smith because we did that in another chapter? Or do you want to do?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, we could look at John Smith and King Lear just as a summary.
Mhm.
Let's do that.
Well, I think my mistake about John Smith for so many years might be useful here because I recently heard someone say after this book club, he was referring to John Smith being what I, at least if I understood this woman, I believe she was referring to John Smith as her personality and King Lear as the roles that she lived. And I believe that's a mistake. I believe John Smith, in his metaphor, is meant to be the self with capitals. You know,
Yeah.
it's meant to be aware presence. It's
Yes.
meant to be consciousness.
Yeah.
And King Lear is meant to be the personality and our roles and the
Exactly.
object that we
Yeah.
are. And
True.
I believe that kept me from, it just was a block to my understanding to
Yeah.
have to see it that way.
Right. Right. So, John, you just described it 100% to my understanding. Also, John Smith is consciousness. It's awareness. It's God. And King Lear is the actor. It's the personality that's that thinks that it's this and that God is out there somewhere.
It
Yeah.
thinks it's limited.
Yeah.
And yeah, okay. So let's start with infinite.
Yeah.
Infinite, when used in relation to our essential self, simply means that our self does not share the limitations of experience. Just as the space of a room, now he brings up our experiment, none of the limitations of the objects within it and John Smith share none of the limitations of King Lear's thoughts. So, no matter how tragic or how great our thoughts are, we're not limited to them. And we always like the high ones, and we don't want to get rid of those other ones. But
Right.
they're all the thoughts.
And the reason that this is helpful is because if we can detach from all experience, even for an instant, even for a moment, then we detach from the suffering. We detach from the belief that we'll have effects on the bodysuit. We are able to be that infinite beingness that is untouched by all experience long enough to come back to alignment, long enough to come back to inner peace and well-being and happiness. Even
Yeah.
if it's just to navigate it, it closer with peace and presence, and not be attached to the drama and the suffering that goes with that.
Mhm. And I really love what you say because when you say, if you detach from your thoughts for just a minute, that allows that emptiness. That's another word I didn't understand for years because I was so filled with thoughts and feelings and this and that. What is this empty presence? Empty, empty, I don't know what he's talking about. And that's what allows the emptiness is the cessation for just a moment of the thoughts and the feelings, the perceptions, and the attention to the sensations. Just for a
Yeah,
moment. We don't have
yeah,
to be in a zoned out state.
yeah.
Just for a moment. Yeah.
So let's look at the last paragraph on page 56.
Likewise, eternal does not imply that our self resides in some mysterious dimension of which we have no experience. It just means that whilst our thoughts, images, feelings, sensations, and perceptions continually appear and disappear, our essential self or being remains present throughout.
Right, right. And it's gonna seem like we're gonna look at the next page, or maybe it's 2 pages away, where it talks about that we are moving from a horizontal perception to a vertical dimension, but he's not speaking as he's not contradicting that statement that we that our self resides. It does not imply that our self resides in some mysterious dimensions of which we have no experience. He's using the word dimension, but we actually do have the full experience in every instant, which is not true, but I mean, just to use a word, every moment of now is still the same presence of I am that would be called the vertical dimension, or the experience of that timeless presence, or that timeless awareness.
I would say that if our focus remains on the disappearing things, thoughts, feelings, then we don't have the experience, but it's always there. It's veiled from our awareness at that moment, but it's still there.
Right, exactly. So let's look at the top of page
I thought you were
57.
going to do questions right after 56. Are you, is it not?
Okay, we can move to that. Let's go ahead and move to that. If you look at the first question that came in, it looks like there was I mean, there's a lot of great comments. Rick West has a comment at 12:16 that says there is no separate we or me to have any type of relationship with awareness. There is no separate entity to obtain or find awareness, etc. There's only awareness appearing to have a relationship with itself.
Pretty fun. That's
That's right. Amen to that. There was a question to above that from Andrew. Does aware space, this is at 12:15, does aware space or awareness give the fruit of the spirit, joy, love, peace, patience, gentleness, goodness, self-control? Does the aware space awareness give the fruit? Well, I mean, those are Christian characteristics from the Bible, and I would say, everything rises out of pure awareness, which is nothing different than God. Everything arises out of that, and not only just those characteristics, hate, fear, loneliness, all of those characteristics rise out of the same space.
I would like to add something to Andrew. What comes up for me when I read that question is that Andrew is looking for those sweet, wonderful feelings. And awareness actually is so neutral. The reason it is peaceful and happy is it's not the happy of I feel great, I'm high. It's the absence of suffering. It's the expansiveness of knowing you're not a personal self. So I think that looking for those feelings might be a barrier to experiencing what it actually is. It's almost bigger than that.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah,
it's not. It's less than that because it's nothing, and it's everything because it's everything. Does that
right,
make
right.
sense?
Yes. Well, and also awareness doesn't have labels. It doesn't
No
have a good or bad.
characteristics.
It
Yeah.
doesn't have a commentary. And if you look for those qualities in awareness, that's not it.
And that's where we all start. We all are looking for the good feelings, the positive
Yeah,
outcomes, and
yeah.
so on.
And
So,
Amy, thank you. Amy Heibel pointed Andrew to page 60. Love is not a relationship. It is a vertical intervention of reality into
oh,
the
we love that.
horizontal dimension. So that's going to be a few pages later. And thank you for mentioning that. And then I just want to say that I love what Yada said. She said, this book is a portal in and of itself. And we were mentioning that before we opened the show,
Mm-hmm.
our study together, that this is totally, one sentence is a portal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Could stay with us forever. Yeah.
yeah,
It's holographic. A lot of what he does is holographic. Take a
yeah,
sentence and you're there.
yeah. And I like what Patty said, awareness is always awake, and the coloring concepts makes it appear and speak as though it is on a journey. Yeah,
Mhm.
and that's the activity, of awareness. The activity of that is experience is the activity of awareness in action, or the mind in action is awareness in movement. Let's see, comment, there is no there or some place to get to. Yes. And then John Smith is who we are, our true nature as awareness. Yes. From Manfred. Let's see, do we have any other questions? Oh, thank you, Rosalind, for the clarification about John Smith. From Jennifer, thank you, Jennifer. Henrik, you mentioned earlier that relaxed awareness of presence will make pain melt away when you don't try to do anything about it. Could you expand on that? Well, the words, I'm going to let you respond to that.
Can you read it to me again? I was
It,
reading it.
it says this came from Henrik. He said, you mentioned earlier, and this would be last week
Mhm.
or maybe 2 weeks ago. You mentioned earlier that relaxed awareness or presence will make pain melt away when you don't try to do anything about it. Could you expand on that? That was at 12:23.
Okay, so from my understanding of this is that there's a paradox, first of all. And when we're looking, the first question to ask oneself on this subject is, am I trying to get rid of it? Because if there's any part that's trying to get rid of it, we won't find out what the experiment is, because now we're in a tug of war with
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
and it
right.
we can't win that one. But there's a way of welcoming it, so and allowing it, and then getting curious about the sensation and not calling it pain, just opening to, oh, tightness, oh, constriction, oh, what, and then you get interested in that, and then pretty soon it might have a different relationship with you, looking, but not looking to get rid of it. And so one is to bring it closer, and one is to not focus on it. And
Right.
both of those depend on you're not trying to get rid of it.
Yeah, yeah. That's primary is not trying to get rid of it. And my comment was that pain, that all of these experiences, they melt like an ice cube in warm water as one resides as awareness. But it's not for a doing. It's imparted as the attention rests as awareness. These passing clouds come and go. It's just it's a natural experience where the objects of experience, they're temporary. They come and they go as we rest as our essential self.
And I think what you just said about including body sensations as the objects of experience, we are also, the body is an object of experience in his terminology, in
Yes.
Rupert's.
Yes.
And that's a big one to get in the beginning. But and it's in an affront to the personal self to be an object just like a pen or something else. But after a while, it's very comforting because it's not such a big deal, whatever you just thought or whatever you just felt or whatever the body's doing. And that's what helps it do what you just said. Paradoxically, it melts away because the focus is elsewhere. But you can't just try to do it because then you're fighting.
Yeah, right, exactly. So Kathy said, "Be empty and come home" at 12:25, and then there's a question from Rosie Warburton at 12:25. A question regarding A Course in Miracles and thoughts, good thoughts or negative thoughts. How does my real thoughts, are the thoughts I think with God, fit in, or does it?
You want me to take that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so here's how I see it. I see that the Course in Miracles says many things which are in opposition to each other, depending on where we are at a certain place. It speaks on many levels, even though we don't want to think of levels. It's not really levels, but it speaks to us where we come there. And it starts with basically your thinking is a bunch of junk. The first lessons in A Course in Miracles, you're not thinking at all, and then you get to see that you have so many attack thoughts, and then you choose again. And then eventually it says, let go of everything, even this book, because it come to me with holy, empty arms onto the love which you are. That's a paraphrase.
Yeah.
So it speaks of the oneness, it speaks of non-duality, but it also gives us a lot of things to do. At the same time, it tells us it's not a doing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
So I would like to just shortcut this though. I try not to bring the course into this book study on purpose. If Rosie, if you want to come to the Sunday Course in Miracles Q&A with that question, I'm happy to go further with it and invite Rosalind also to join us. But let's move on with the content of the Being Myself, because we'll get stuck on this stuff and then we won't be able to finish.
definitely. Okay. So we
So,
seven.
but thank you for that explanation. That was 100%, but we have to move on.
Mhm. Well, we
There's
have
a
about 57, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So that's good. That first paragraph. Our essential self is the ever-present factor in all temporary changing experience. So we're never not there. Sometimes not we're not aware of awareness. We're not aware of consciousness, but we never disappear, right? That's so important. It
yeah,
does not exist on the horizontal dimension of time. It is the vertical dimension of being. So I think that sentence, it does not exist on the horizontal dimension of time. So if I'm in a fight with Bill, it's not there. It's like, which side is awareness in? Like, it's not in the play of the horizontal. It just
yeah,
doesn't, it's not there. But if we were to go to the vertical, it's vertical meaning if you have a relationship with the word God, that experience, your experience of God takes you right to awareness. Awareness and God and you are all the same.
right. And it says it's saying that it's available now.
Yes, always now,
Yeah,
now and now and now and now,
right,
always now.
right.
Yes,
It's never later, it's always now.
yeah,
So God can't be later. When it says, well, never mind, I'm not going to bring the course into
yeah. No, okay. So our essential self does not share the qualities or limits of thoughts, feelings, sensations. This is a repeat, but you can't get this one enough. And perceptions, and is therefore impersonal. That's a hard one for us to take at first. Yet it is at the same time utterly intimate. That makes it palatable because it makes it true, makes it feel real. We are very personal. And yet, if we want to exchange that word intimate, then we can be less defensive. Then we're open to what is true, which is unlimited and eternal, empty, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. I like what it says in the third paragraph. The self pervades the body, but is not located in or qualified by it.
So
It
beautiful.
does, it does not share the limits or destiny of the body any more than than space shares the limits or destiny of the building in which it seems to be contained.
Yeah,
It
so he
is,
puts together that whole experiment we did with the self-aware
yeah.
building in space.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
like that a lot, the metaphor for the space, because it's easy to relate to it. If you look around right now in the room that you're in, and just imagine that the furniture is in the room, and then all of a sudden it's not in the room. The space in the room is unaffected whether the furniture is there or not.
Mhm.
And that would relate to all objects of experience, all personal body self experiences, all sensations, all perceptions and beliefs. They're furniture. And
Mhm.
awareness remains always the same.
Mhm. Yes. And I love it also because where's the edge of the air from this inside your room to the air outside? If we remove the walls, the air wasn't limited by the walls. Where is the edge? It's eternal. It's unlimited. It's expansive.
Right.
It's what we are. So I like that as a metaphor too, because it helps us see ourselves as not limited by the edges of our body.
Yeah. And it's not really air, it's space, because even when air's not there, the metaphor still
Yes,
stands. You go to the furthest reaches of the solar system, and it never ends. And that's
exactly.
the same thing.
Exactly. And that's why he usually even says space like place, because
Yep.
it's not a place with edges.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. So at the bottom of page 57, when Rupert comes, I'm going to ask him a question based on the last paragraph. Because he says in the last paragraph, Rosalind, there is no personal self whose essence is impersonal and universal. There is no higher or lower, enlightened or unenlightened self. There is just intimate, impersonal, infinite self, which becomes temporarily mixed with the qualities of experience and seems, as a result, to become temporary and finite without ever actually ceasing to be itself.
So beautiful.
And
Wow.
so, my question for Rupert on, I think he's going to be here March the 2nd, did I say? Instead of the 9th. My question is, how does Jesus channeling fit into this description at the bottom of page 57? So I'm just curious about that to hear his reply. And what else do you see on 58 or 57?
Um, well, if I'm going to really highlight um, the person who embarks on a search for happiness, enlightenment, or God is like King Lear traveling the world in search of John Smith. So just the idea of trying to get somewhere, which all of us have been doing in many of our pursuits, it just brings it back home that we are already what we've been looking for. I mean, that's just so satisfying. They are looking for their own being, the experience of happiness, the light of being, or God's presence shines in each of us as the knowledge I am, the sense of being myself, or simply the feeling of being. So beautiful.
Yeah. And it's so direct. It's just a direct statement of, and you know, he's such a wordsmith. The title of the book, "Being Myself." That's why this resonates so clearly with all of us.
Mhm.
And the last paragraph on this page, page 58, one who turns towards their own being will be divested, usually gradually, but occasionally suddenly, of all their acquired limitations, and will sooner or later stand revealed as infinite, impersonal, self aware being that is the essence of prayer or meditation. And you could also say that's the awakening. That's a description of you're awake. And don't let someone say that you're not. When you have a glimpse, and then it's usually gradual, and for some suddenly, it's still the same awake.
You know, I want to say something about that, Bill. I love what you said. Don't let someone say you're not, but the claiming of it yourself is so important because you don't have to say you're enlightened being. Really, most awake people don't go around saying they're enlightened.
True. That's true.
Usually the one that is claiming it, you might want to question, but that's another story.
Yeah.
But just even if you just have to say right now, because your personality is reluctant and it feels too big, that claiming of right now, I get this.
Yeah.
If it, my own personal, this is me, not Rupert, but if you are willing to claim even that, more will be given to you, more and more and more and more. But when we don't claim it, we can't wait for someone else. I know in India, they tell you when you can speak. You don't speak on these subjects until a guru tells you, now you're ready. But here, I think there's something to be said for we claim it, and then more is given. It's not about claiming it to anyone else. It's about claiming the experience of being myself, being what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it is a fine line because, and I like the way you described that just now, Rosalind, because you're right. Awakened beings don't say, I'm awake. You can hear in the language that they're using and the way they're pointing that that's a statement. That's just true. And at the same time, when what Rupert is pointing to, like on page 59, the second paragraph, the very first thing he says, the name I, or the knowledge I am, refers to the element of experience that is unchanging and unchangeable. Bam, right there. We all have that. This is why I am. When we make that statement of I am, and we just rest as the experience of I am, we touch with the essence of being
Mhm.
right there.
Mhm. Yes. So true. So true. And I love what he says about resistance here. Um, it is so going back to what you said, the name I, or the knowledge I am, refers to the element of experience that is unchanging and unchangeable. It is, he's telling us what it is. It's open, without resistance to all experience, and yet cannot be harmed. So he goes back to the experiment again of the room. The aware presence of that room is not changed by anything that goes on in that room. And so it is with us. We can have all kinds of experiences, highs, lows, and our essential self is unchanged.
Yeah.
And so there's no
Well,
egotism in saying, I am aware of being aware.
Yes, exactly. And it's a statement of fact.
Yeah.
And what he does, he qualifies it the the understanding that without resistance, it's open without resistance. That's why you learn to reside in a place that welcomes all experience and is not reactionary.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. But,
And
and then,
therein lies the peace of God. Therein lies the peace of, and then into that space comes clarity in acting what is in flow with that same essence of being.
Mhm. Mhm. And he brings up again, being is indivisible, cannot be divided into objects and selves. Everything and everyone borrows its apparently independent existence from it without ever actually becoming an object or an entity in its own right. I think that fits with that section that you're going to ask him about. It doesn't refer to Jesus, but it fits with that.
Yes, yes, it
Yeah.
does. Totally. Let's look at the last paragraph and then take a couple of comments off the chat.
Okay. Okay. This impersonal, unlimited, indestructible, indivisible, self aware being fills our body as the feeling of being myself and shines in the midst as the knowledge I am. Or even you could say, I
No,
exist.
shines in the mind.
It shines in the mind. Yes, sorry, as the knowledge I am. Or I would add, or I exist. Sometimes people have trouble with I am.
Yeah,
And so I
yeah.
exist, we know that. It shines in the world as the isness of things. That's beautiful.
Right. And then the ending, the sentence that follows that, the being in all beings is the same being.
Mm. We share our being. And then this is so important, perception refracts impersonal, infinite, indivisible being into an apparent multiplicity and diversity of objects and selves, and thoughts gives them their names. So it sounds like a lot to swallow if you're new to his language, but if you just see ourselves as being colored by a prism, seeing through a prism, and then the different colors are appear, but they aren't actually different. It's just the appearance through a prism.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. There were some great comments on the board. Thank you for. Uh, it is. Someone was asking what the course, what is ACIM, and thank you, Eliana, for answering that. And then Holger said, God's name is I am, not I did. Funny. There was a comment from Rick at 1241. The now doesn't exist in time. This is why we refer to it as the vertical dimension. And then another comment from Rick. Awareness is not a space itself; it's space-like. Yes, you just said that.
Mhm.
And then there was another question. Oh, okay. So, Patty, thank you for that statement. Jesus is a frequency of light. I like that. Uh, let's see. Oh, here's a question from Andrew. One who turns towards their own being, who is the one? That's a great question, Andrew. And what it is, it's awareness, the awareness of experience. What is it that is aware of your experience right now, Andrew? And that awareness turns towards itself by being aware of being aware. That's a beginning. of the understanding. So the one who turns towards its own being, it's it's really a it's using words to say what is occurring, which is awareness self-realizing itself that it's always been.
I would like to add something to what Andrew said, because this Andrew's talking about the last sentence of this chapter, and I know a lot of mystics and teachers have talked about going inside to find the self. For me personally, I have found awareness by going outside first, outside myself, the where I'm starting as a body and a person. I leave the entity of myself, find no edges, go outside, and then I am included in that. It has just been a personal way to find everything is everything. I got a little confused when I started going inside because I was consumed by the personality and the separate self. I'm sure there are people who do it a myriad of ways. It only matters how we end up as the one being, the one awareness, the one consciousness. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter which pathway, in or out to in, or into out.
Your way is confusing to me because I found trouble finding it there. I find within as awareness.
So you see, and it doesn't matter as long as we have the same understanding. We're in the same space-like place,
Yeah.
and yours is the more usual, more traditional. But I'm yeah, doesn't matter. But I just thought
Yeah.
I'd throw that out to Andrew in
Thank
case.
you.
Yeah.
So Rick has a comment at 12:48. A glimpse is undeniable awareness, recognizing itself. Thank you for that, Rick. 100% agree with that. Only a mind can determine otherwise. Put your faith in the undeniable, the authentic that's keeping it experiential. And glimpses are, everyone has them. They just, most people don't know they have that glimpse is the awareness that recognizes itself. And Rupert speaks about it as love. It's the removal of the obstacles, the removal of the separate parts brings you to this experience of what we call love. And then it brings with it a feeling. Shelley says, I am awake, I still make errors, but I am aware of them and no longer suffer for long when I do. Great. Thank you, Shelley. Rana said, Andrew, I think that's one of those concessions of the limited. Oops, sorry about somebody's leaving me a voicemail. And then let's see, do we
Bill,
have?
we have only 2 minutes left.
Okay,
Do we
how do
want
you
to
want
go
to
to love
end?
is not a relationship?
Let's
Even though we
let's
touched on it.
end on his last paragraph.
All righty. We all long to be returned to our original nature, whether we realize it or not. All that is necessary is to take the thought I, or the feeling of being myself, and allow it to draw us inwards, as if the self were constantly saying to itself, turn towards me, and I will take you into myself.
There it is. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Rosalind, for an awesome session for this
You're
book
welcome.
study. Such a joy. And thank you, everyone, for joining in comment and participating in the chat. And thank you, YouTube viewers. I've heard that we have over 30 people watching on YouTube. Thank you for joining with us, and we'll see you next week for chapter 7. And let's see, next week we're going to have Jennifer Sheehan for chapter 7, The Unveiling of Myself. And we look forward to being with all of you again. Have an awesome week. Thank you, Rosalind.
Thank you so much.